Well, I've worked 10.5 years for the Laclede County Sheriff's Department, and Dick and I came to this from different places, or from different places. He had been working in Christian ministry and begun to see the great increase in meth use and people who were coming to him in crisis. And of course, I worked in the Sheriff's Department and saw between 1994 and 2004 such an incredible increase in the number of people who were coming into jail, particularly women, but just the double and triple the numbers of people that we had seen in Laclede County in jail before.
Within a few short years.
Within a 10-year period. Within a 10-year period. And no one predicted. We moved into a new jail. We moved in from a jail that held basically about 40 people to a jail that held over 100 people. And the immediate thought was, oh, well, you know, you'll never use all this space. And yet within 6 months, we had the place full, and we're looking for other places and spaces. And we're not the only ones doing this. Counties all over Missouri are doing this.
Right.
And the cost alone is doing people in. And what we're seeing is people revolve back through again and again with no change. And until there is something in terms of intervention and help, true help, medical need treatment, offered to these people, you know, nothing changes, because to just lock someone up, then when they're, you know, released, they're right back in the same situation.
Throwing away the key isn't going to solve this problem.
No, and many of the people that we had in jail came back to me as they were getting ready to leave and said, Laura, I don't want to do this anymore. I've learned a lot of things, but I have no place to go except back to my family or back to the people and friends I was living with. They're still doing meth.
Because what you're also seeing is families going through.
Absolutely.
The father, then the son, or cousins and everything.
It's not unusual to have a meth-oriented family where the parents have began using, and then the children fall into the use as well. Eventually the parents become the grandparents, so you have the grandparents and the parents and the grandchildren. That's not unusual.
People don't think about the fact that from the 1960s, which was the first drug generation in America, which was Haight-Ashbury and Woodstock and all that, we're now working with the grandchildren of that first drug generation. So many families, yes, there was drug use, you know, as youngsters, and then they walked away from it. But some families, they never walked away, and so they've seen drugs in their family, you know, for all these generations. And addiction issues are something that we've known for a long time also follow in families, whether we're talking alcohol addiction or other addictions, and meth is one more addiction. Unfortunately, what's happened is that our addictions have gotten worse and stronger and much more destructive over the years.
Meth is a very addictive substance. With even the first injection, 95% of the people become addicted. And the nature of that journey is they create a neurological problem for themselves very quickly, where the high, low, the rush, the crash, the rush, the crash, creates a neurological problem where they have to sustain their use. So unlike some other substances that give the rush, but don't create the cravings that follow meth.
And aren't followed by the low.
Yes.
Because is that the thing that I've seen with people who become addicted to meth? It's not just going through a withdrawal, it's that horrible, horrible depression.
The crash throws you back into another rush.
Yeah. Now, you told me something startling about addiction in general, is that most people, I think, would tend to think that addiction starts with kids drinking, but you said smoking.
Yeah, smoking can be a precursor. Smoking is narcotic in the nicotine, and one dependency leads to another dependency, leads to another. And many of our meth survivors started smoking at a very early age, and then started drinking a little beer, and before long booze, and before long marijuana, and you see nobody just steps into meth, Deborah. From step one to
because when we picture, because we've talked about how this hits, it's very democratic. It hits everyone, and so when I'm picturing in my mind a professional woman that becomes addicted to meth because it helps her get through the workday and the standards so high, probably she had some other addiction problems before that.
Good chance. I think we all have addictive tendencies toward something, but those who are already using recreational drugs, you know, they want to be accepted within their group, and acceptance is the huge issue. It's the card that we almost all play in terms of our addictive behavior, but with meth, acceptance has a huge price tag, and so parents are very wise to know, you know, who their children are involved with so that they can screen their children away from drug use.
Let's backtrack just a little bit to give a little history of how it did get so prevalent here in Missouri, and specifically the Ozarks.
Well, it started in California really as recreational drug with the biker groups back in the 80s, and because of I-44, a lot of traffic between California and here in the Ozarks. So the bikers riding back and forth beginning to distribute the drug. In fact, one of the names for meth is crank. And the reason it was called crank is because it was hid out in the crankcase of motorcycles being transporting the drug. But in the 80s, Bob Palett came from California, saw the meth that was being done here in the Ozarks, wasn't impressed with it at all, and actually developed a recipe for cooking meth that really accelerated our meth problems here. He's very regretful of that, and I'm sure that you know, the way in is the way out. It's through relationship. You have to be involved with the right place. Change takes place in the context of meaningful relationship, and so you have to get involved with the right people, and there is a way out.
And that was the thing that offers hope in the book, because as you're reading it, and it's terrifying to read, it's heart-wrenching, and it's gut-wrenching, because you listen to these people's story, but then you're reminded constantly that here are 30 people that made it, that they did recover from it. And let's talk about ways that you think are the best way to help get them there.
Well, these are 30 people that are our friends and neighbors right here throughout the Ozarks, and they told us their stories. These are people ranging from Joplin all the way up to right through here to like the Ozark area that don't know one another, aren't connected, and yet they tell very similar stories. And so they told us how they got on, how they got off, and how they stay off meth. And as Dick said, it starts in relationship. So often it had to do with who they were with. It also had to do with where they were at in their life. Those were the two things we heard over and over, that they were at such a low point in life, and that then they were with a lot of times a new group of friends, new party people. They were looking for a relief from whatever was going on in their life at that time.
Because you were saying that the overwhelming common denominator was people that felt like there wasn't any hope.
Exactly. They told us that they were already in a situation that nobody cared. So why should I care?
Why should I care? There's never enough time to talk about something that's important. But Dick, you were saying 4 steps that you can point to.
Yeah, there's 4 areas. There's prevention, there's intervention, there's treatment, and there's interdiction. Those 4 areas Laura and I have studied out, worked on in this area of methamphetamine use specifically. Prevention has to do with education and awareness and creating environments where people won't even go into meth through the DARE programs, through drug prevention programs. But then those who do, they need intervention, and the earlier the better. Better early stage intervention than late stage intervention. Treatment, we need more treatment possibilities. We need more treatment alternatives, more treatment possibilities. In fact, let me mention that in Laclede County, there's a drug council right now trying to put together funding for a residential treatment center, about a 10-bed center. It would be the first in the nation meth specific. If there's anybody that might be listening that would care to be a part of funding that. There's also already significant funding found, but a lot more needs to be. That thing could be developed in 08 or 09. But then you have the interdiction. And that's where we spend most of our money, is in law enforcement. And there's no treatment. Very unusual for somebody to be getting the kind of treatment that they need while they're incarcerated. So we spend a lot of money on prevention and a lot of money on interdiction, but Laura and I are especially interested in the intervention and the treatment part of it. People can come off of meth, they can stay off of meth, they don't have to go to jail to create that interruption in their addiction.
And as much as anything with the book, the message you want to get out is that all the people that have signed this book have recovered. And that's what the message you want people to know, is you can recover.
And these folks are back taking care of their families, working. They are, again, like I said, our neighbors, the children of our neighbors. They're back working in the Ozarks. They're not being taken care of. They're not in jail. They're back being contributing members of our culture and our society, and that's what we all want.
Right, exactly. getting in touch, getting a copy of the book, the contact information.
Yeah, you know, Deborah, I take calls from all over the United States. I've had calls from Washington, state of Washington, from Hawaii, from all over the country.